Hi guys, good evening. Please mark a thumbs up or something if you can hear us. Perfect. Amulia, Arman, great. Hari, Meena, Camilla, you guys can hear me? That's great. All right. Before we begin with anything, few etiquettes for the Zoom. I'm sure by this time, since we've been in pandemic, and you all must have taken classes, you all are very well aware of this. But I would really recommend that you know Uh, you raise your hands if you have any questions. We will have a Q&A round at the end of the webinar. I'll introduce and I'll start with things and then I'll let Pooja take over, right? Another thing that we'd suggest that as and when we keep changing the slides, we would like that you can take screenshots for your better understanding, for something to refer back to. Yeah. And if there are any questions, any doubts, any things, you will be you will be given time to have one-on-one discussions about it, right? And other than that, we'll also be sharing to all the emails that we have sent out. We'll also be sharing the recording of the webinar. So something that you can always look back to afterwards. Yeah. All right. Perfect. All right, guys. I think we can begin with things. Pooja, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Great. Okay.
Okay, so now that we are starting, can everybody please quickly turn their cameras on? It will be really nice to see everybody.
Yeah, that will be great if you can.
All right, Aslan, we are ready to begin.
Sure. All right. So welcome to the first webinar of the season. Uh, First webinar from Oneiro, right? So from draft to acceptance, college essay workshop. So the idea of the webinar came up with that. Uh, Hari, you have a question, I think.
Actually, I'm not able to view the slides.
You're not. Oh, sorry, my bad. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. I had put a pause on it. All right. Okay. So we'll start with this. So the whole idea of the workshop is that we are starting with our summer breaks. Everyone around the world is going through their summer breaks now. Everyone is starting with it. And this is the perfect time that you start thinking about the essays, the college essays, the SOPs, and everything that is required for your applications, right? What we'll do is we'll walk you through the basic ideas of things, and along with that, the importance of essays. And then there have been few questions that were asked to us through emails. We will try and cover all of them, and then obviously whatever questions you might have after the webinar, we'll take care of that as well. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Now, starting with who we are and what do we do. So our organization name is Oneiro Education, right? We are based out of New Delhi in India. We have been counselors for cumulative around 10 years. Pooja has been for at least 7 8 years. I have been for at least 10 years 10 years now. We've been in the test prep industry. We have been in the counseling sector. So we've been doing that, right? Pooja, who will be taking lead of the webinar, is the person who is specifically in our company, who's the co-founder of the company along with me, is also the person who specializes in essay editing, guidance, structuring the essays, and getting those stories out, with which we've thankfully have had great admits in the past from Ivy Leagues to tier one to tier two universities across US, UK, right? US, UK, Canada, Australia as well. So one of the things that she has really worked with kids in getting out those essays, those specific factors, the do's and don'ts, and things like that, right? Now, what is the idea of the webinar? Why exactly should you be attending or listening to us? And what exactly will you take away from this webinar? That is one of the most important factors why you sit through something, right? See, the idea is that we'll try to divide it out, right? So we are trying out by the end of this webinar, you are able to take away, what is the purpose of this college essay? Why exactly the importance, right? We all understand, whoever is applying to universities now, everyone understands that there is a holistic picture, that it's not just about your grades, it's not just about your SATs or ACTs, it's not just about APs. Everything comes together very well with your essays, because essay is something that really helps you portray yourself in front of the universities and stand out, right? So we will understand the purpose of it. We'll also go through what are the different types of college essays, the common apps, the supplementals, statement of purposes, and things like that. It's important that we understand the distinction and what goes in which, right? So because people do apply not just to US or not just to UK, but more sometimes even holistically to US, Canada, UK. So you need to have the differentiation in mind because there are multiple types of essays that is going to come your way for your colleges, right? Then the next most important thing that time and again, every season we go through with our students is which prompt to select. Many a times we have a certain story in mind and we are thinking of something and where exactly does it fit? What exactly is the prompt trying to ask us? We might think one thing while reading the prompt, but once we go a little deeper in understanding of the prompt, it might need something else. So we have to be very careful about what prompt we are selecting. Obviously, that is not the case with when you're trying for statement of purpose. It's a very straightforward thing. It's a very different thing. We'll cover that, right? But when we talk about US common app essays and supplemental essays, there are multiple prompts that are there, right? So choosing which prompt, what story, what exactly defines the story, the crux of the story that you're trying to put, things like that. And then also we'll try to give you some tips on how to write that essay so that you're able to portray yourself in the best way possible to those dream universities that you're trying to look for, right? Now, let's begin with why exactly are we writing an essay at all? What is the reason behind all of this? Understand this by a very simple graph. And again, this will be a little repetition of things, but understand it in this manner, right? That whenever you are applying to a university in US, let's talk very specifically for a second to US. Obviously, UK also comes in it, but on a different level. But let's talk with a more holistic picture that is there in the US applications, right? US applications does not just talk about your grades. It's not just about, it's a huge part, definitely, but it's not just about getting that 95%, because there are 95,000 other people who have gotten 95%. So what they do is they try to look for more. What else do you have other than the grades of your school of class 9, 10, 11, 12? What more do you have? Then comes your SATs, ACTs, APs. So these are more targeted things, something that what you have scored will be static. It's not going to change, right? The extracurricular activities, the MUNs and things like that. Those things are going to be there. Apart from that, you have your LORs, interviews, and any additional factors that are there, right? So again, LORs and interviews, these are more something that is again more static. It's something that is more, you will have not a lot of control over, right? It's going to go in a certain manner. But everything that you have done in the past year, 2 year, 3 year, for however long you have been preparing for your applications, comes very well together in your essays, because this is your moment to exactly tell the admissions counselor that somebody who's sitting next to you, who's getting that same percentage, why you're better than them. Or what is it, if not better, then what is it that is making you stand out? What is your story? Because there, to reach to a point of an interview is a very long process. Before you reach to an interview phase where you are able to talk to a counselor, before that, it's the essays that tell your stories. There are beautiful essays people write, all sorts of stories. It's always about introspecting. It's always about redefining, refining, and things like that. And that's when your essays come out. So it becomes a very, very important factor that you are very, very careful about what goes into your essays. There is multiple options and multiple ways how you write your essays. So you have to be very careful with that. That is what we are going to cover up, right? So I will let Pooja take over, and she will be walking you through everything that we just discussed, right? Pooja, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aslan. I'm going to just take 1 second to transition. I'll take control of the presentation. Just a second. All right, everyone. Is the presentation visible to all?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you so much, Arsalan, for kicking off the webinar. And you forgot to introduce yourself in the process. So Arsalan here takes care of postgraduate admissions, which includes um, helping you every step of the way, which is basically what we do here at Oneiro. So, from identifying your career interests to um, figuring out with you what is the right way to build a profile, keeping your interests in mind, keeping your goals in mind, and identifying the right countries and colleges, and finally helping you through the applications for those. Um, so yeah, that's about us. Uh, I'm going to now take you to where Arsalan left. Right. So when we talk about essays, like Arsalan said, this is a chance that you get to tell your own story. All the components here in your application are going to be very number based, are going to be very static, and are going to probably be the same for a lot many people, right? So your academics, it's just a number, it's a rank. SAT, again, one number, one score that you get. Then in your extracurriculars and sports, there is a limitation to how well you can express your abilities and your interests, because let's say if you're in a sport, there are only finite possibilities in what you can gain in sports when you're talking about just the achievements. But it is rather the journey of being a sports person or playing that sport, which is what you need to show through the essays. Now, there is another angle, which is the diversity angle in essays. People come with their various stories and various experiences, and it becomes very difficult to judge all of that about somebody from a list of activities, from a sheet, from a resume, from their scores, right? Just knowing their background on paper like that is not enough for people to know you. And why is knowing you important? Knowing you is important so that the people who are letting you into that college have a fair idea of the kind of cohort they're going to end up with, the kind of group of people they're going to end up with in their campus the coming year. So now, thinking about an essay, so far we have written them mostly for school. Very few of us here probably have been writing essays for enjoyment, for fun, or for competitions, if I'm not wrong. Now, the moment you stop thinking of essay as a task, and the moment you start thinking of it as a discussion, that's exactly when it becomes easier for you to deal with this. Um, and in this, there are so many challenges that people face. I want to quickly hear from all of you what is your thought about writing an essay for college applications? At what point are you in your application journey? I know the final, like the application is yet to open, but have you had a chance to go through any of the prompts? Have you given an attempt to writing any essays for either your US, UK, Canada applications, Australia applications, or maybe for some competition or internship? Does anybody here have any experience with that? Anybody would like to speak up?
I haven't begun writing my essays, but then I have brainstormed ideas, topics
All
for
right.
the essay.
All right, that's great. So Hari, you're right now in 12th grade, I'm assuming.
No, I'm in 11th actually.
You're in 11th and you started brainstorming. That's fantastic. So that gives you a whole year, exactly 1 year, to think about a lot many of these ideas that you must have written down. Anybody else? Arman, would you like to share?
Hello.
Yes, hi Arman.
Hi. So I applied for Betson summer study program, so I wrote a couple of essays for that.
All right, and how was your experience of writing these essays?
Well, the the biggest problem I faced was I didn't know how formal am I supposed to be for the essays because
All
this was
right, that's one thing that we will be covering today. Please go ahead.
and because like sometimes I use a phrase in that and I have exclamation mark and I think that okay this is way too informal. I
Hmm.
try writing it in a formal way and it just loses its gist.
Right. Okay, that's something that we will be discussing. Anybody else would like to go ahead? Anushka, Harshpreet, Mannat, anybody else who would like to speak up? Also, it's really nice to hear from all of you. It would be even better if you turn your cameras on. So, would anybody like to share?
Yeah, I think major difficulty I've faced with essays is mainly brainstorming about who you are as a person, though we are the ones who know the best about us. Even then, when we
Hmm.
are faced with questions like what is a skill that comes naturally to you, or how have you delivered difficult news to somebody? Was there a particular thing particular tactic you tried to pass on that difficult news to somebody? So when it comes on us, technically it should be
Hmm.
the easiest thing to do, but in reality, it's not because
Right.
if it's, I don't know if it's me, but I don't know the right way of thinking of all the incidents that have happened in my life since maybe when I was a child to now, and to write a whole essay around it. I think that's been the most difficult thing. And maybe like just understanding how do you brainstorm is um, a skill that one must have or must learn now.
Right. Thank you so much, Manat. So, a very good point raised here. We're supposed to know the best about ourselves, but it is so difficult to put that into words sometimes. So, we have a comment also, the experience of writing essays, right? So, right, let's get into it and let's tackle all of these points one by one. So, overall, the outcome of this discussion is going to be that we are able to answer these questions and a lot more, and we are able to, most importantly, put ourselves in the shoes of the person who's going to read this essay. So we are going to learn how to think from the perspective of the admissions officers. And there is a variety of them because you are going to apply to multiple colleges, right? So the people you're sending your essay to, these people read essays day in and day out, day out. There is no type of creativity that they have not come across. There is no type of idea that they've not come across so far in all these years of experience that they have. In fact, there are no original ideas in a true sense. Everything that you have to say has been said already. So how do you make sure what you have to say matters and what you have to say actually gets read and understood by that person who's going to read it, right? So moving on. Now, how many of you here are applying to the US this year or maybe next year? Quick show of hands will be great. Okay, one, two. Hmm. Keep going. Pretty much everybody in this case. Right. Okay. So all of us are on the same page. That's great. Now, what we're going to do is we're quickly going to take a look at common app question prompts, the prompts that you all will be filling this year and probably the next year. Now, um, yeah. So just take a minute, go through the text on the screen, look at the various prompts, and then we are going to discuss what these questions are trying to ask us here. Now, Common App essay prompt, I'll just give a little bit of a background. It's a 650 word long essay that you will be writing for your US applications. You will be submitting it on the Common App portal when you fill in your applications for various schools. You can send a different Common App essay to every college, or you can send the same Common App essay to all the colleges that you're applying to. Now, these are the 7 prompts or 7 questions. You have to pick one and answer. And this is going to be one of the most important pieces of writing in your US application, apart from the supplemental essays, because this essay is all about the story of you, to getting to know you better. So please, everybody take a minute and tell me what you think about the essay in front of you. So I hope everybody's had a chance to read all of these. Yeah, cool. So I want everybody to participate in the discussion of these essay prompts because these are going to be the most important prompts that you will be writing. So the first prompt, would anybody like to explain what this prompt is asking us? Anybody can start. What is the first prompt you're asking us? Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful that they believe their application, their story would be incomplete without it. So, who wants to take a go at this?
I'm guessing it allows you to shed light on something that you think makes you you and emphasize one part of your profile.
Right. Okay. One part of your profile, or it could be something beyond the profile as well. It could completely be something like that as well. Now, with this prompt, one common question that I get: background, interest, identity, and talent. Do we have to write about all four of these? It's a very common questions that comes my way every day. Do we have to write about all four of these?
No, I think here they're giving us the options about what we can write about, but it's supposed to be just one.
Correct. So it could be just one, or it could be an intersect of two, but it does not have to be all of these together. So Harshpreet says maybe to illustrate how their background or ethnicity has shaped them. Yes, ethnicity could definitely be a part of it. That becomes a part of your identity. So identity can include ethnicity, race, gender, class, caste, and the part of the world you belong to, the part of the world you identify with. All of these categories fall into this essay. Now that makes this a very broad essay, right? Um, so you have to be very specific about what is it that you think is a unique factor about you. Now, how many unique factors can we actually have about ourselves? Think about yourself as a person. What is something that only you have and nobody else has? Or you have experienced and nobody else has experienced? Is there something of that sort in your life which definitely nobody else has experienced?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Arman.
Yeah, I made a world record. I basically skated continuously for 24 hours. So that was it.
You did what for 24 hours? I missed that word.
Skating world record.
You have a skating world record for 24 hours. That's fantastic. Now, that's something that we can say is a standout factor about somebody. But not to rain on your parade, but how many world record holders are there in the world in so many different categories? How many high achievers are there in the world? How many people are there in the world who have stood out at something, who have excelled at something? For you, it's skating, and for you, it's a world record in skating. But for the next person, it might be a world record in something else, or it might be excelling at something else, some other sport, or maybe some fantastic achievement in skating, right? That's possible.
Yes.
Now, the idea is not to say that your achievement does not matter. The idea is to tell you that there are hardly any experiences which are not human. There are hardly any experiences which are so unique that nobody has been through them, right? There are common themes in life that everybody here has gone through or will go through at some point. So how do you make this unique? How, when you talk about this world record, when you talk about this achievement, how can you possibly make it unique? What is the unique part about it, rather, I should ask?
I can explain the experiences or basically the way I felt during the record.
Correct. Excellent. Your experience, your feelings, how you got to the point where you started, where you even thought that this is something I should do. You can talk about skating, you can talk about setting a world record, you can talk about after, before, between, anything, as long as you're telling it from your perspective, as long as you're telling what you went through, as long as you're telling how any of this made you feel, how any of this made you grow, how any of this made you uh, what you are today, right?
Yes.
So when any prompt is asking you to talk about something unique, your focus has to be not on the fact that it happened, but the fact that it happened to you. And once you are able to bring that into the prompt, it becomes a special essay. It becomes worth reading. That makes sense? All right. So we are
Yes.
going to take a look at the second prompt. Does anybody want to discuss that?
Yeah, here, can our challenges not be specific events, but be something very functional? I mean, if there's not a particular thing that you define as, or you're not able to call it as a challenge, but there's something that you've consistently faced throughout your um, high school years, can it be something functional as well, or they're looking for some particular event where something happened and it affected you?
Right. So it could actually be both. Now, the prompt here says the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount the time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. Challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Right. So here, it could be a particular event in life which came into your way as a hurdle, as an obstacle. It could also be something that you have struggled with for a long time, something that you've wanted to change about yourself a long time, or something that is fundamentally a part of your life, right? So, a one time example could be an accident, some sort of a loss, some sort of a tragedy, right? Um, and something which is, which is like within us. For example, somebody might have trouble managing their time very well, somebody might have trouble learning certain things in a certain manner, and then there are obstacles and challenges which are bigger than us, which are caused because of the situations we are placed in, right? So people have so many kinds of challenges. Lack of resources or poverty is a challenge. Belonging to a certain race or a religion in the country sometimes tends to become a challenge. Being different in some way from the society or the people around you also becomes a challenge. So it is your choice to pick the theme. What is more important is that you need to talk about the impact that it had on you. So what do you think would be the right way to talk about the impact of any such experience? When we go through something and it um, you know creates obstacles and hurdles for us, when you are through it and you're looking back and recounting it and talking about it, what are the things that you will talk about in this essay?
How you
So
tackle how you tackle the issue uniquely.
how you tackle the issue, one. Somebody else was also going to say something. I have a response here on chat box as well. What we learned from it, how a failure in something led us to success, or learning something new. Learning something new, correct. Now, when we talk about this learning, um, something that will work out better in the essay is a qualitative sort of a learning. In the sense, I have trouble, let's say, managing my time, but I took a lot of steps and I showed a lot of faith in myself to be able to overcome that, right? And not just the techniques of time management that I implemented in my life, but rather identifying that this is a problem and being motivated to solve it and pushing myself to keep working at it to solve it, right? So, shall we move on to the next one? In the interest of time, I will be going a little fast with the rest of the prompts. So, the next prompt says, reflect a time when you questioned a challenge or belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? So, when we are talking about this sort of an essay, a belief or an idea is something that is probably ingrained in you from the past, something that has been ingrained in you from the way you have looked at things or learned to look at things, right? So, at what point did you start questioning it, and what was the outcome for it? So I'll give you an example of one of my previous students who chose this prompt. who chose this prompt for her essay. So what she wrote about is self-worth and the idea of self-worth, how she was able to question the association of her body with her worth as a person. So she wrote an essay on getting bullied in high school and changing schools because of it, and the impact that it had on her until she came to a point where she decided to not let it affect her anymore. And that was a journey in discovering her self-worth, not through how she looks or what she wears. And also that this is just a phase in life. And this is how teenage is. So it was a coming of age story, and it was a really interesting and a really honest read written in a very simple language. Does this example for this kind of a prompt make sense? Does anybody have any other suggestion?
In my case, it might be running after somebody, running after recognition, running after somebody to recognize you and take attention of you, and slowly
Right,
getting over that and realizing that then it matters if you recognize yourself and what you are.
right. So, Hari, what is the idea or belief that you challenged in this journey?
The beliefs that ever since I was a young child, I always felt like I had to be redeemed by or recognized by somebody in order for me to feel like I've achieved something, and
Right,
not that I can achieve something by myself.
correct. So, we are questioning the idea of external validation here. Right, great, great. That's a very good example. Now, with this, on a similar line of thought, we can also write about beliefs that, things we are taught about people, things we are taught about living in a society. Um, when we have certain beliefs about gender, when we have certain beliefs about race, when we have certain beliefs about the way the world works, right? And we go through an experience where we are able to shift, like change that perspective. What this essay prompt is essentially going to do is that it's going to show the reader that you have the ability to grow and adjust and evolve in a new environment, because you will be going to an international campus for your education and you will be meeting so many different people from all walks of life that you need to possess a certain flexibility in thought. And if you have been flexible in the past, you also show that you will be able to do it in the future as well. Now, the next one, reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? Now, this essay is a less chosen one, less picked up, uh, because a lot of people are not able to come up with something. But does anybody have any suggestions here to make? Who is that one person who has made you happy and thankful, and you have gratitude towards that person and meeting that person at that point in your life?
Possibly your parents?
Yes, that's a good idea. Now, um, all of like a lot of us do feel that way for our parents, and I can feel that for my parents, and so can you. But what sets apart our experiences of living with our parents or being grateful towards them?
The sacrifices that they've made, and um in, let's say, for example, if they've moved to a different country and they brought you along to
Right,
enjoy a better experience in education or so, you could show gratitude for them um having the resilience to go through with that particular decision and giving you a better opportunity in life.
right. So this essay that this idea that you're mentioning here is first of all very layered. There are so many layers to it. There is the experience of moving abroad. There's the experience of building a new life in a different place. It's about taking an unconventional path as a family, and it's about your relationship with your parents. Right now, again, what part of this experience can we focus on to make it more specific to what you have gone through? Now, the way to do that would be to add a lot of anecdotes. The way to do that would be to very deeply think about what each of these sacrifices and each of these turning points in your life as a family has made you feel, right? Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yes.
Would anybody like to add to this? All right. So one more thing that comes to my mind is whenever we are writing about our parents, we must always keep in mind that a lot of us are fortunate to have parents that who make sacrifices for us and who do things for us. Um, and when you're writing about that, don't forget to write about your parents as people, as individuals, right? So think about what characteristics, what traits stand out about them as individuals. Because fathers share a lot of same qualities, mothers share a lot of same qualities. But what is it about your parent that you specifically like? Maybe it's your parents' sense of humor in difficult situations. Maybe it is the small ways in which they support you. Maybe it is the constant motivation for you to keep doing better. It could also be tough love, right? So take a moment to think about them as an individual separated from you, and in that light, what kind of quality about them shines is what you're going to write about. Otherwise, if it sounds like somebody else sitting next to you could write the exact same sentence about their parents, then it's not going to feel unique at all. So keep that in mind. Is my friend going to say the same thing about her father? If that's the case, then this line is a cliche. So illustrate it with enough examples or anecdotes of feelings to show this is why I feel the way I feel. Now, moving on to the next one, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Anybody has suggestions for this one? We're talking about accomplishment, event, and realization, which is very similar to if you see challenge, setback, and failure. So we are talking about the opposite of it. Earlier, we were talking about adversities and challenges leading us somewhere. Now we are talking about accomplishments, events, or realizations. And in college applications, when all we are talking about is our achievements, I think there is plenty of opportunity to speak about, to choose this prompt as your topic. So, any suggestions for what we should keep in mind for this one? What is going to precedence? What is going to take precedence in this sort of an essay? And would you even choose this or not? Would anybody like to have a go at this one? Some new people have also joined us. All right, so some ideas about this prompt. When you are talking about accomplishments, make sure that you are talking about your learnings from that accomplishment and not what you got out of it at the very end. So, journey and not the destination. This is that sort of an essay. If you're talking about an event or a realization that sparked a period of personal growth, make sure that the topic that you are choosing is not something as overused as learning to overcome my fear of public speaking, right? Public speaking is an accomplishment, it's an event or a realization that I can also do it. And this is something that a lot of people are scared of. But the moment you start talking about it, it becomes a cliche because it's extremely common to talk about this experience, right? So talk about entrepreneurship, talk about starting a club, talk about starting a social initiative that um, made you realize a lot of things about yourself and somebody else. For example, if you are spearheading an initiative and it made you realize the importance of teamwork and relying on people and trusting people, then that would be a good suggestion for this sort of a topic. Now, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging, it makes you lose all track of time. This essay is about the passion that you are trying to follow. So it could be physics, for example. Now, the good part of this is that there is a lot of interesting stuff to talk about when you're talking about your main subject, your chosen subject. The difficult part, however, is that in the supplemental essays, you will be coming across a why this major essay? Why are you choosing this major, right? And when you want to write about that, you'll feel that you've already allocated these ideas to your Common App essay. So this is a reason why a lot of students do not choose this essay. But let's say you are a physics major who also really loves to play football or skate, like Arman, for example. In that case, don't write it about physics, write it about skating, because that is also a passion that is very, very engaging for you, right? Or you can also go down the rabbit hole about something that you're obsessed with, something that you find really, really interesting, right? So this is that kind of an essay. Now, the very last prompt is share an essay on any topic of your choice. I've not really seen anybody choose this prompt because the first six prompts that you have cover everything: your interests, your identity background, um, challenges, obstacles, accomplishments, and gratitude, right? So that's a very wide variety of topics to be writing about. Anything that you come up with is highly likely to fall in the first six categories, so you might not even reach to the last one. Now we are going to move on to the next one. I'm going to be a little more quick in the interest of time. We are already at the end of the first hour. So, in the Common App, once you finish writing your Common App essay, you will come across the community disruption essay, which is also known as the COVID essay. It's going to be 650 words long and it is extremely optional, completely, totally optional. Don't think that you have to write it just because there's an option. Why? Because this essay is focused on what people personally went through COVID. This is concerned with a natural disaster or a national tragedy or a larger than life event that may have impacted your life in the region where you live, right? So there are earthquakes and wars in so many different parts of the world time and again. And these are the kinds of things that this essay is focusing on. So unless you have a real reason to talk about something that impacted your academics or your profile, and something that was completely beyond your control because it was beyond everybody's control, that is the opportunity when you write about this. Now, unfortunately, a lot many people have experienced loss of loved ones and dear ones during COVID. If you're writing about that, it needs to be directly related to how it impacted your profile. So people who have lost somebody in their family, their lives were disrupted in that period in a very big way, and families also faced a lot of instability when this sort of a thing happened. So that's something that you can talk about. Let's say your parents separated, and in that time, there was a lot of adjustment going on, and you had to take care of the family, or you had to take up some responsibility in the family, right? Um, and actually, this needs to come through these events only, not something that's happening personally in the family, but something that is happening uh, because of these larger events. So again, in that case, you're going to focus on how this big event, losing somebody so close to you, or the loss of facilities, etc., in your area impacted your progress. So that's exactly why this essay is here for. And do not try to use this essay to explain any other part of your application. You will have plenty of opportunity for that in the future. Now we're going to discuss supplemental essays. Supplemental essays can be 50 words long, 100 words long, or 600 words long, anything in between. All colleges are going to have their separate supplemental essays. So you will have to thoroughly check the requirement of each one of those in your Common App. On the 1st of August, the Common App opens up. You can go to the Common App, add your colleges after filling the form, and start looking through the essays that they're going to talk about. But until that happens, you can just Google these supplementals and you will find the last year's essays. Now, what are going to be the common themes? First of all, they're going to be pretty similar to what we have discussed in the Common App. Let's say you chose the first essay, you will realize that you will be talking about your obstacles in some other under some other heading. You will be talking about gratitude or inspiration in some other heading, right? So we'll just go through these experiences, these topics. The first one is going to be about your experiences. Tell us about something that had a huge impact on you and change something about you. fundamentally. Now, this is going to be focused on your extracurriculars or any activity that you did, any sort of event that you were a part of, which gave you a lot to think about, which helped you grow or evolve in some manner. Second is overcoming challenges. When we are talking about this, again, talk about your personal growth while you were dealing with that challenge. Why this college essay? This is going to be very, very important. You will be writing it for almost every university that you apply to. Before you start writing this, do very thorough research of what you like about this college, what do you like about their faculty and department. Why do you think that this is the best place for you to study this? Now, even if you talk about MIT and Harvard and Stanford, all three are excellent top three colleges of the world. But one particular department or one particular course, right? The experience of that can be different in all three universities. So you need to have your points very clear about why you want to attend this college. This essay is going to be more factual and straightforward. You are going to show that you've done your research and you are going to show that you're very clear about why you want to do this. Try to focus on the college and not on your background at this point. But yes, you can write about what really inspired you to choose this. What was your first interaction with this college if you want to write about that. Um, the next is unique interests, something like a passion that makes you lose track of all time, right? So when we are talking about something unique, it can be your hobbies, habits, thought patterns, perspectives that make you stand out. Now, I had a student who wrote an essay um, about a collection of toy cars that he has. What sparked that interest? Why did he commit to it? And what does it mean for him to have that collection of toy cars, right? Um, so we have some examples here: rock collector, model builder, meme maker, train spotter. People have also gotten into Ivy League universities for having very active meme pages. So anything that is a passion for you, that's a side project or a side quest in your life, can be featured in this essay. The next is why this major. Again, very similar to why college essay. You need to know exactly why you feel this career is good for you. There are a lot of lucrative careers right now. For example, if you ask somebody what's a very well paying career, they will tell you something in STEM. They will tell you it's data science, data analytics, artificial intelligence, medicine, right? But you need to have your own clear motivations um, for why do you think this is going to be right for you. In these essays, a lot of times people start writing about when were they first introduced to the subject or this domain of knowledge and how have they explored their interest in it through years. Talk about your projects briefly. Talk about any accomplishments like Olympiads, competitions, internships, research papers that you may have written. And when you mention those, just mention one line about why do you think it helped. So I wrote this research paper and I learned about how to make a scientific inquiry in this area. I went to this competition and I met so many people with similar interests that it helped me form a community of like-minded people. um, as a child, I realized that I could lose myself for hours into this subject, right? So these are the things that you talk about in this essay, but the cherry on top is going to be a conclusion where you talk about your future goals. That with this degree from this university, I think this is where I'm going to end up. So your goal beyond college should be clear. Now, you're not committing to anything, you're showing that you have clarity of what you're doing. Now, last and most important, because it is the most confusing for a lot of students, the diversity or the community essay. This essay is where you talk about exactly where you come from in terms of family, location, and cultural, cultural, religious, and social background. You have to talk about what is it that you bring from your background and you will add to the college that is going to help enrich that place, right? So you can talk about one of the main values of your religion, one of the main sentiments in your community, or the ways in which your community comes together to help people. You can also write about, let's say, being an immigrant, right? Being a third culture kid, and how do you situate yourself in the world with that identity, that specific identity, right? So this is what the diversity essay all about. It's a little tricky to figure out, but think about the people you socialize with and what makes you stand out in your group of friends in terms of where you come from, and that might help you a little bit. So the next is an example of what supplemental essays might look like. I want everybody to take a minute to just go through these. Harvard supplemental essays, they will give you 4 to 5 prompts. All of these are going to be short, 200 words each. Sometimes it'll be 50 words, sometimes it'll be 100 words if we are talking about MIT, Stanford, Duke, Yale. Um, but these shorter answers tend to be compulsory. So all of these are going to be compulsory. And these small answers will make you think hard about all perspectives of your life. So think of these and think of the instances that you will allocate to each of these. Does anybody have any inputs for prompt one? What do you think you could possibly add to uh, this sort of a prompt? So Vanshika, Dev, Amulya, I have not heard from any of you so far. Would you like to add what could probably go into this first prompt? You can cite any personal anecdote to go with this prompt. Anybody?
Maybe you can like talk about your background with this. For
Right.
example, if you had like an interesting childhood experience, or if there's certain qualities like perseverance or something that something in your childhood has shaped, you can talk about how, despite Harvard obviously being known for having harder academics, like those qualities can help you face the challenges that you might face at Harvard.
Right. So, Amulya, when we talk about when we link this sort of an essay to academics, also, it might feel like a bit of a stretch because we have 200 words here in which we have to include an opening and a conclusion, a theme, anecdote to support that, and your drawings or your takeaways from that experience and why you think they help you, right? And the question here is not exactly asking us about academics. It's not asking us how well we will be able to adjust with academics. It's talking about importance of enrolling a diverse student body. Now, for a place such as Harvard, what does diversity mean? It means that people come from different countries, different backgrounds, different experiences, and different talents. So this becomes an opportunity to talk about your personal background more than your academic background. Now, one intersect that you can find here between academics and your background is, let's say, if you're a woman in STEM or you are an underrepresented minority in in a place which you had not been able to occupy before, or your people would not have been able to occupy before, and now you have that opportunity. That is diversity in academics, that is diversity in your field of work. Or if you are inspired by somebody in your family who has done that sort of a thing, and how did that impact you, right? So the way in which we can bring academics to this is going to be through anecdotes of um, how this makes you stand out in the sense that, there are not a lot of people like me in this place, in this position. Does that make a little more sense for this prompt?
Yeah, it does. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
When it says like enable you to contribute to Harvard, do you have to explicitly mention that in your essay because you only have 200 words, right? Or if it's more of like an implicit thing, like if you stress more on your diversity or how like unique you are, would that
Mhm.
also handle that part of the prompt?
So it helps if you're able to mention that this experience taught me compassion, and compassion is a quality that I bring with myself to Harvard. So if you are able to conclude in that manner, it just drives the point across in a better manner. Or if you end by really emphasizing on how you have grown through this experience, because they're very, very, in a very straightforward manner, asking you, what do you bring to the Harvard community? There are a lot of people who have the same marks as you, who have cleared the same tests and requirements as you, who also have their own unique talents in sports, theater, um, music, everything, research, right? Now, keeping all of that aside, what is the very last thing, but the very most important thing that's going to make me pick you? That's what they want you to answer. So, does that make it a little more clear?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right. Next is briefly describe an intellectual experience that was important to you. Again, we are going to talk about the importance of learning something, but what you got out of it. After that, any of your extracurricular activities, employment experience, travel, etc., that has shaped how you are. So when we are talking about starting a club, we are going to not just focus on the achievements. You can focus the achievements that we had. I was able to grow the club to 70 members or 700 members, whatever it may be. We were able to address this particular challenge in, let's say, environment conservation. Our impact was X. Our impressions on social media were Y. We were recognized by ABC platform in our city or in our country, or some international platform. We were recognized by such and such authority or body. You can list all of these contributions, but these are also going into your activities section. These are also going into your resume. So don't get too carried away by the specifics of it, by the numbers of it. Rather, show how it was a very enriching experience for you to research so much about environment, learn about people's challenges, and provide solutions to that challenge. Humility is going to be key in these experiences. Trust me, if you are not humble about it, if you're not focusing on the learnings, you are doing yourself a disservice. You need to be very, very clear about what you've learned from all of this at the end. And how do you hope to use your Harvard education in the future? This is going to be entirely about where you see yourself, let's say 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, whatever is your personal goal. Using your education has to be about making a good life and a good career for yourself, exploring your interests, enabling yourself to be better and do more. And don't forget to include something that you're doing for the larger community out there. But the goals need to be very clear, and the goals need to show that you know the opportunities that lie in your field of work. Now, one very interesting prompt at the end, top 3 things your roommates might like to know about you. What do you think that is? About you, um, something that only very few people who are very intimate and close with you know. And also, this prompt is trying to ask you, how do you imagine your future in college? So you are looking at yourself from the perspective of your roommate. Does anybody have any examples of what you might put here?
Does it have to be with regards to your personality or like your habits? Or like can just
Yes.
be
Sorry, go ahead.
or can it be something else that for example you might bring to the room?
Could it be about something that?
Never mind. This might be absurd, but then can I talk about Me having a habit of snoring.
A habit of snoring.
Yeah.
Yes, you can definitely talk about that. Your roommate will have to put up with that. But what more about that snoring? Do you plan on compensating for that with something else? Or do you want to just write about it in a funny manner as a warning, like beware? So you have to adopt a certain tone when you're talking about this. You can make it funny or you can be, a little apologetic about it that I know it's going to bother you a bit, but I also bake very good cupcakes, so I'm going to make up with that. Right? So that's how you balance something out.
Okay.
So yeah. All right. Now moving on to U Chicago. U Chicago is also a very good example for us to look at. Why? Because U Chicago wants you to write a longer essay and pick one of these five very quirky prompts. Go through these very quickly and tell me if there is something interesting that you spot here that you would like to answer. So Nana, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. Actually, I joined like 15 minutes ago. So, have you covered the supplemental essay part for Dartmouth or Stanford?
So Nana, we did not go through all the colleges. I picked Harvard and U Chicago as two different examples. Whatever I said for Harvard holds true for other colleges as well, Dartmouth also. But you can look at Dartmouth prompts. They will be available online, at least the ones that you saw last year. And you can email to me. You can write an email about any questions that you have, for those specific questions. Or you can even bring a prompt to the session at the end when we go ahead with the question and answer part.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody who has any suggestions about these?
Yeah, I think I can relate to option C because there was one speech that I had once given as a part of Cable's club where I had created a portmanteau for internships plus vacation, interncation,
Hmm.
and I think we could think around those lines to answer option C. But surely these supplementary essays are different from the ones we usually find, like maybe in Harvard or the others.
Manat, I want you to go over the last part. I was not able to hear it.
No, I was essentially saying that I can relate to option C as an essay response because I think I can write a good essay response to option C because I have some experience with this, and I can also dabble with creating new ones if that's what it demands.
Right. So yours was internication, right?
Yeah, essentially internship during vacations for high schoolers, just to make it
Right.
as an attractive term for so basically the audience I was addressing is again high schoolers,
Hmm.
and you need to ensure that your speech has general and specific purpose. So just to not tell them directly to do an internship to get that practical experience or essentially catch them young as a phrase.
Hmm.
I tried to take it the other way, saying that May is a time when you have vacations, and that's a time where you can put a cherry on your cake as an
Hmm.
addition and go for interncation. So yeah, interncation, internship plus vacation.
Yes, that's a great example. Very good idea here. One more thing comes to mind. So, prompt B, where have all the flowers gone? Pick a question from a song title or lyric and give it your best answer. So, this application season, I had a student who wrote an essay about Justin Bieber's "What Do You Mean?" I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that song. It feels a generation old at this point. But yeah, so he chose "What Do You Mean?" to write a commentary on how people will sometimes say things that they don't mean, but they're still trying to give you a message. So mixed signals and all the places in life where you get mixed signals and how do you deal with them. And it came out to be a very hilarious and a very entertaining read. So these are some of the examples of what U Chicago really wants to hear from you. It wants creativity, it wants good language, it wants the ability to make connections across different themes.
Can you help me understand option D?
Sure. So D says jellyfish is not a fish. Cat burglars don't burgle cats. Rhode Island is not an island. I think some misnomer to come up with or defend a new name for it and explain why it's inaccurate name should be kept. So who would like to take this one up? Something that has an absurd name, but the absurd name should be kept. Essentially, there is no reason why it's supposed to be that way. I mean, Rhode Island is not an island, but we still call it an island. And why are we okay with that? So there isn't supposed to be a logical reasoning to this really, but what all can you think of to justify this? So about Rhode Island, I can say that the unique experiences which make Rhode Island what it is are different than anything you will find anywhere else. And in that sense, Rhode Island is indeed an island because of the isolation from the rest of the world and the uniqueness of it. So you can point to that. And if you belong to this place or you know about this place, or even if you have watched the show about this particular place, you can cite some examples, maybe from TV shows itself, why you think this name makes sense. Anybody else wants to add to that?
I still have one question.
Yeah.
So not about option D. Like I don't have an answer for that yet. But U Chicago has significantly different. I mean, they're targeting. I think something else. What are they trying to see about our personality from the way we answer this question, like these questions? Are they seeing creativity, or are they seeing how we can bring about two things together and show them in a different angle, or maybe perceive it in a different way, the way anybody else might not, and the way it's personalized for you?
So both the things that you mentioned are the same. Your unique perspective is how you look at things when nobody else can look at those things in the same manner.
Can you
Okay,
come again?
so it is about the uniqueness of your perspectives. It is about how you look at a situation when nobody looks at it that way. So it is to bring about, it is to think about uniqueness, but it is also to think about, um, I mean, it is forcing you to think about different outcomes of two things coming together. Those two things could either be literal, like in the first one, they say pencil and eraser. Arman had an example for this, obstacles and hard work. So you just have to adopt a perspective, but it shows them how clever you are, whether you have a sense of humor about things or not, and indirect qualities about you that one might figure out. You could be very practical or pragmatic. You could be very whimsical. You could be very you could romanticize certain ideas. There are so many ways to be a human, right? And that's what we're talking about here. Aslan says tennis elbow, you get it while playing golf. So that's again an example for option C. Does that help, Manna?
Yeah.
Cool, great. Now I will very quickly cover UK and Canada as well. How many of you here are looking to apply to these two countries? Quick show of hands will work. Or do we have all US applicants here? Okay. Arman, UK or Canada? Canada. All right. Others, any other countries? Hari, Sunana, Vanshika, what other countries apart from US?
For me, it's Singapore and Netherlands, somewhere else in Europe.
All right. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So I'll quickly tell you about Singapore and Netherlands. Both of these are going to have less creative requirements than what you just saw here. They're not going to be um, as exploratory about your personality. Singapore particularly is heavy on your scores and your grades, but their questions are going to sound more like a statement of purpose, which we are going to discuss here. Netherlands is also expected to be a little similar. Now, anybody else has anything to add here? Countries? Okay, we'll move on. So, when you will be filling your UK application, you will have to write a 4,000 character long statement of purpose that is roughly 620 to 630 words long, and it needs to be exactly under 4,000 characters. You will be writing only one statement, which will go to all 5 colleges that you apply to, which means that the statement has to focus on your chosen major and not on your chosen college. It has to focus on your chosen major. It has to be a retelling of your CV. So imagine that you are sitting in an interview and the interview has your resume in their hand and they ask you to just go over your history, go over everything very quickly, what has led you to this point here in this chair, right? So that's the perspective that you're going to adopt when you write about UK. The entire statement is not going to be very creative, but you can have a creative beginning to it at the very top. Um, it is important to support your claims with examples. If you are saying that you're a hard worker, show about an activity, talk about an activity that you did to prove that you're a hard worker. And it is going to be a little more different from the US essays. You will not be getting multiple opportunities to talk about multiple things. Be academic oriented, be professional, be serious, and show your passion through the activities that you've done. Now, coming to Canada, all Canadian universities have their separate requirements. A lot of universities, the forms will be filled on OUAC platform. Some applications will be filled on the respective colleges' websites. You will have to carefully read through everything that they ask. Some universities might take a longer statement and it will be a single statement. Some universities will ask you to fill a lot of small questions and answers and essays. They will also require your activity list. You will have to read the prompt, understand it, and then answer it. If it sounds a little more like the US ones, a little more creative and whimsical, you can keep that in mind. But if they're more straightforward, then take the UK approach for it. Take the more straightforward and professional approach for it. Now you can take a very quick screenshot of the slide we have in front of us here. These are going to be your journaling prompts for the next few months until you are ready to submit your applications or start revising your drafts. We went through a lot many prompts. We are coming to the end of this segment about the prompts. You know that you will end up talking about all the aspects of your life if you are applying to the US. So it's a very, very helpful activity to journal in detail about all these aspects of your life. And then when you have all your applications in front of you, first of all, allocate these ideas to these various parts. Last year, I saw a lot of students struggle with this, and the year before that as well. For their common app, they had so many ideas, so much creativity, so they were so excited about it that they gave the best to it, just to that one. And then everything else fell flat. And for some people, it was the other way around. For the common app, they were so intimidated, they were so um they were so overwhelmed with the idea of writing this star essay of your application that they were not able to do a very good job with it. But with the rest of the essays, they started to slowly open up, become more creative and more fluent with their thoughts. And in the end, the outcome of the application was good, but a lot of them ended up changing their common app essays twice or thrice in their 3 month, 4 month application journey. And trust me, it's a lot of work to keep writing new drafts of your common app. You don't want to be in that situation. So journal a lot, give tags and titles to these ideas, allocate these ideas to different question categories, and then start preparing your drafts. Because everything has to go together, right? So please prepare it in advance. This is going to help you a lot. Application season, as you move towards the middle of November, will be in full throttle. and it's going to become a lot. You will be handling your midterms, you will be handling maybe your last attempt of SAT, and so many responsibilities of school, especially if you are on the council or anything and your sports. In the middle of that, it's a very, very good idea to be prepared. So start writing, just journal, make bullets. You don't need to perfect it right away, but make bullet points of all these 8 areas of your life, of your personality, right? So now we are coming to, I think, the most awaited parts. How do we actually write these essays that we are talking about? Now, one thing I'll make very clear, the rest of the presentation is not going to include any essays for you to read. I'm not giving any examples. I'm not giving any references. And I have a very clear reason for that. Don't read anybody else's essay until you have written your first draft. If you go around looking on the internet, reading other people's essays, you might just feel that they've done it all. All the ideas are out there in the world. There's nothing left for me to say. And you will build a lot of undue pressure on yourself. Trust me, everybody has something interesting about themselves to tell, and it does not need to be compared to the next person. So write your first draft, at least for your Common App essay, at least write that UK SOP before you start Googling best Common App essays 2023, right? You don't want to do that. Eventually, you can open up your mind a little bit to other ideas, but in the very beginning, don't go around reading other people's essays and don't read your friends' essays. Don't read your class toppers' essays. Now, this is what we want our essay to have at the very end. Are we directly answering the essay prompt? Are we even understanding the prompt correctly? So with the examples that we saw in the previous slides, we were able to see how our understanding of the prompt might differ a little bit from what the prompt is really asking us. Please spend some time with the prompt and look at it from various angles. You can even discuss the prompt with your friends to see what exactly should go into it. Second is the opening hook catching the reader's interest. Now, the hook should be interesting enough for the person to continue reading on, and it does not mean that you have to write something out of this world. It just means that it needs to give a good opening into the story that is going to follow. We are not looking for a cinematic or a literary masterpiece, but we are looking for something that is honest, that is straightforward, and that tells me what I am getting into. So that first line needs to do that thing for us. Now, is the argument or the narrative comprehensive? Are we sticking to the point? Are we going in the right direction from the start to the end? In, let's say, the Common App first prompt, interest, identity, background one, right? It's very important to talk about everything all at once, but we don't want to do that. We want to have an arc. We want to have different parts to it, phase one, phase two, phase three, and it should go like this, right? So there needs to be a good flow to it without too many interfering details and topics. Now, does it have a natural style that's comfortable for the student and appropriate for the subject matter? We had a question about tone of the essay at the beginning. Um, so we are looking for a conversational tone. We are looking for something that is simple enough to understand, but also not very laid back, like you're not taking this seriously, right? And the subject matter that you choose has little but some role in what you're going to write about. If you're writing about something very serious, such as an an experience which had a lot of impact, there's going to be a gravity to that, and that gravity comes across in your vocabulary and structure. But if you're talking about something that makes you really passionate, you might be a little hurried, you might be a little fast when you're talking about it, and there is so much that you want to say about it, right? So that's the thing about pacing of the essay and structure of the essay. Last is grammar, punctuation, spelling. We have a few tips for that. And last one is, are we paying attention to the recommended length? Now, for the Common App essay, try to meet 650 words. Most of the essays end up between 645 to 649 words. You will not be able to cross it at all because the boxes for all applications across the world cut the answer off if you're trying to exceed it. So you will have to edit it down to the last word. Before hitting submit, carefully check that no words are getting cut from your essay, because your word processor like Google Docs, might show a different word count and the box might show a different word count. So be very careful about that. And we are ready to move to the next one. Now, few examples to discuss. Um, Usual themes that we talk about, but how can we make these better? I'll not go through all, but please feel free to ask any questions, right? So sports is a very common topic. Many sports person go through these two things. One, failure, second, injury. And they all have to learn how to get back on their feet through that. So when you're talking about injury or failure, injury happens to a lot many people. You need to remember that this is not about injury happens to a lot many people. It is not about just that physical injury, but it is about all the feelings and emotions that you go through. Give examples of how you were resilient through that. Give examples how you worked hard to retrain yourself, and give examples of how when you were so low on confidence, you just pushed yourself to achieve that victory and you were able to um, get a good outcome for yourself and all the learnings that you had through that experience, right? Now, when we talk about our experience of immigration or even being of belonging to an immigrant family, even if you're born in the country, in the states or anywhere, right? A lot of times we see themes where students are talking about differences in language and culture and a cultural shock maybe, or how it is so difficult to make such a big switch in our lives. The focus rather should be on the micro rather than the macro. Don't talk about very big themes. Those very big themes we all know about. What we don't know about how you felt while you were going through it. So you need to take specific examples of how language differences manifested in your life, but it needs to be followed by what did you do to overcome it. And it does not exactly involve just learning the language better. It could also be a journey in trusting yourself. It could also be about gaining that confidence to communicate and being assertive about what you have to say and getting your point across. So it could be changed into something of that sort as well. When we are talking about culture, let's just not say that there is such a big difference in culture and I miss what I had back home, right? But rather talk about what are the points where you felt that the two cultures of your home country and your new country can be integrated in some ways, and how have you used that to become closer to the new people you're going to call friends. Does that make sense? Now, okay, the most important one, volunteering. Please listen to this carefully. We've had so many experiences of students not getting it right. Whenever you're talking about volunteering, there are a few experiences, there are a few points to keep in mind. Now, volunteering might be you teaching kids in an underserved community. It could be about you designing a solution to solve an environmental problem. It could be putting funds together to donate to a community or raising awareness about a disease. Anything or any of these examples counts as volunteering or social work. Be very clear about the humility, about maintaining a tone of humility in your essay. Be very clear about the political correctness of the essay. If you're claiming that you engaged with a certain community, be very sure to know them very well. You will have to show that you've actually worked with them in a very sensitive manner by understanding their needs first, and you're not working in the manner of telling people what's good or what's right for them or helping them when they could not help themselves. You're not going to show anything that makes it feel that you have saved people. Be very, very clear about that. And in volunteering essays, you're going to talk about problem solving essentially. This is a community, this is their challenge. How can this challenge be solved? I put together a team of people. We started thinking about it. We emailed a lot of um, important people or people who could actually make an impact. And we asked all of them to join us. They joined us, and we were able to take the necessary steps to um, do this, and this. Quantify what all you have done, and then talk about how did that help you change yourself as a person, It does not have to be about feeling sad for people who are worse off than you in life. It has to do with compassion, empathy, knowing different challenges that people have gone through, and knowing that you can't always judge a book by its cover. Those sort of things, right? Your language plays a very important role in these essays because we've seen them go wrong so very frequently. Any questions about any of these themes, or do you have any theme in mind that you want to discuss?
Yeah. For the last part where you talked about volunteering, I don't know why, but I generally have a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of where I've worked in, whom I have served, what I did as a part of the internship. But how do you really and very authentically highlight that you empathize with the people you've worked with or served? And how do you embody that trait within you? So, is there a unique way or different way of doing it than the way it's generally done?
Do you want to give me an example from your experiences? And then we'll see if that's good enough or if we want to make it better.
So I'd say that during the pandemic, I conducted math and science classes for the underprivileged communities in an
Right.
online mode. Those were, I think, 6 to 7 graders. In general, just helping them develop basic logic in terms of maths, and then just helping them get a sense of identity by helping them get started with their journey in English. Now,
Hmm.
I did this because I feel everybody has should have the right to education the way I did and the way I had all the opportunities at my time. They should get some part of it, and it's my duty to give back in some way or the other. But now, the way I would go about it is how I would show empathy is I empathize with these people or I embody this trait because I've done this. I've done this social work for them. But there should be a better way of saying this, I'm sure.
Right. So, for this sort of an experience, um, if you focus more on, first of all, putting yourself in those shoes of those people, right? What problems are you trying to solve here? Because if you have a laptop and an internet connection, and they are also able to access that, then that's the level playing field for you. Both of you have that access. The backdrop is pandemic, when people are not able to step out of their homes. What is the problem that you're solving here for the people? It's not online teaching, but it's fundamentally teaching them. Focus on the teaching part of it. Focus on what is the difference and how do you bridge that difference. Number one. Number two, teaching younger students math, science, and English is going to be the most common thing that you come across. Because last year, about 70% of my applicants had that in their applications. Everybody did this exact thing during the pandemic. The scale of it differed. Some people are able to show the certificates without a lot of real experience. Some people don't have certificates, but they have a lot of experience. But because this is such a common example, it is not going to shine at all in your application. So, in your general group of friends or classmates, just look around and see how common or how unique this activity is, and that's going to help you a little better in um, judging whether you want to use this or not.
Okay, sure. But even if it's not this, some general social service activity, you're doing that because you empathize with the people you're serving.
When
How do
does
you
that
show?
empathy come? So, empathy is something that you will talk about after um, spending a certain time with them. That would be the point when you show that looking closely at what people are going through is what made me empathetic. And you don't have to show one particular kind of empathy. You're just generally empathetic and a kinder human being for the future.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to structure, tone, vocabulary, grammar, and formatting. So in any of these writings, you do not require any headings or titles because that just takes away from your character space. You cannot cross your word limit. Every paragraph should only be single spaced, and sometimes you will be able to bold or embolden the text, but you might not be able to put italics. So if you're planning something of that sort in your essay, make sure to test it out in the box where you have to put it. The next is structure. For structure, there are three different ways in generally in which you can proceed. You can either give an in the moment narrative. Now that is when something happened today and I'm going to tell you all about it. So something happened and you pick up the phone and you call your best friend and you're going to tell her everything that happened step by step. And it's a very important thing that's happening to you, right? So this is going to be very fast paced, rooted in the present, and the conclusion will follow at the end. You will be able to show quick thinking, you will be able to show decision making, you will be able to show how you did what you did through this style of a narrative. The other is when you tell about a narrative over an extended period of time. So let's say if you're talking about a relationship that you share with a family member and how that relationship has evolved over the years. So you can talk about everything from childhood till this point and the realizations that go with it. For example, I had a student last year who talked about her mother being the senior math faculty in the school where she was studying and how that posed a lot of challenges for her because she was never allowed to score less in her exams. Everybody would say, oh, she's the teacher's daughter. How is she not scoring well? Right? And whenever she would do something good, everybody would say, of course, she had to do it. She's the teacher's daughter. So, how that impacted her relationship from the age of 10, 9 or 10, all the way when she turned 16, and what were the ups and downs through that experience every year or every 2 years, she had some instance to add there, right? So, that's a narrative. The last is a series of anecdotes or a montage. So when you pick up a theme and you explore that theme through a lot of snapshots of things that happened across time, that's also one way of writing your essay. So essentially, it has to be storytelling or it has to be a conversation. It is not going to be an application. It is not going to be a recounting of or a recollecting of events. We have to be very clear about that. Now, the next is tone. We had a question about tone earlier. Now, in any application that you're writing, be it for a summer school, for an internship, or for your college, at least until you are in college, you don't need to use extremely formal language. For a business app, for a business related work, um, for an internship application, yes, it will be formal, obviously. But for any essay where you're telling about yourself, you don't need to be formal. You can use exclamation marks and question marks and quotes, all sorts of punctuations you like, only when they're appropriate, only when they are required in that point. When you're showing a lot of excitement or passion about something, or you just figured something out and that's so amazing, you can use an exclamation mark. That's completely okay. In terms of language, don't use abbreviations, don't use slang unless you're trying to prove a point using that, right? Don't use very SMSy language, does not look good. It has to be proper sentences and a proper narrative with good flow. And be relaxed, be friendly, be conversational. You're telling about yourself. So, 15 to 20 minutes into the interview, and that spot where there's a lot of back and forth between you and the interviewer about what we're talking about, that conversation, that's what you ideally want to achieve in this part. Now, next is vocabulary. You need to show good command of language, but you also don't need to be Shakespearean about it. You don't need to show your flair for vocabulary when it's not required. If you want to show that you are a very good writer, that needs to come through the complexity of your thoughts and the way in which you are able to simplify that complexity and make it interesting for the reader. So give your writing to somebody to read, to get a review from them, maybe a teacher, maybe a friend, maybe a parent, and ask them, was it easy for them to read? Did they feel like reading it till the end? And if they say yes, that means you've written a good essay. The last is grammar. Stick to either American or British, whatever is followed in your country where you come from. Spell check very, very thoroughly. Your computer is going to help you with that. But also just take a printout, run a pencil along the lines, or maybe ask somebody else to do it. And make sure that you're not overlooking any grammar because it just looks a little shabby. and we really want to prevent that. We are competing for excellent academics here. Let's not make silly mistakes. Be very clear about it. I got a couple of questions about Grammarly. So you can use Grammarly, but you have to use it with caution. The problem is that it's just AI and it has its biases, right? Sometimes it will not understand a few things that you're trying to say, and it will change the meaning of the entire sentence. So be very clear. Grammarly can be used, but you need to rewrite it thoroughly. You cannot trust it without checking it twice. Last and the most important, please don't use AI to write any essay. It is not going to serve you well. Colleges are able to spot these essays by just reading them, because there is a certain manner in which AI writes, and it is going to mess up the originality and the tone and the conversational tone of your essay. AI has a very robotic manner of writing, and that's not going to help you. So definitely not the final draft. And if you feel like brainstorming ideas using ChatGPT or BART, that's still a pretty bad idea, because AI has a very limited imagination and AI does not know you. It does not know what you've gone through, what your experiences are. Don't expect ChatGPT to fill the gaps that you are not able to fill on your own. So I hope that's very, very clear. Don't try to use ChatGPT for your essays. The last thing to keep in mind is review again and again. Try to get your first draft ideally ready by the beginning of August, so that you're able to take some time away from it, come back, make final edits, and submit it very, very comfortably, and you're not rushing at the very last minute to make changes and put everything together. And one very important thing, don't go to all your friends asking for their drafts. Don't distribute your drafts to all your friends. The reason is that everybody is going to have a certain opinion about what you have written, but these people cannot be the judge of what the admissions committee is looking for, even with the best of intent that they may have for you. So have a little confidence, have a little faith, take some time, and go to people with very specific feedback. Don't ask them, how is my entire essay? Have specific questions. Do you like this particular word or this way of writing? Do you think that this is easy to read? Do you think it's interesting? Do you think there is flow? Do you think that that I should keep this part or remove this part? Have specific feedback to ask from people. Otherwise, if somebody says, oh no, it's a bad essay, what are you going to do? Right? So be very clear in what you want your outcome to be like, and then take help from people to get to that point. But don't depend on people's opinions on how you want your essay to turn out. Right. So we are at the very end. These are some of the questions that I got in the form that all of you filled. Some people have not shown up, but the questions are here. So I want to open the floor to everybody. You can pick something from here to answer yourself, or you can ask me and the rest of the group something that you have on your mind. I have not yet heard from many of you. It will be great if you can just use the mic, turn on the camera, say hi, and ask your question. So, anybody, anything on your mind after all of this? Any questions? We have about 10 minutes remaining, so we can utilize that time.
I have a question, but it's not about essays, it's about the application.
Sure, no worries. Go ahead.
So I have some medals in sports, but they are like 4 years old. So should
Right.
I include them in my application or not?
Anything that you've done before ninth grade will not go into your common app activities section. Simply because it directly asks for everything that you've done in last 4 years of high school. So the medals you've gotten at that point can't go into your application as honors, but you can use them in your essays somewhere. So if you want
Uh,
to
I was
just,
thinking to use them
yeah.
indirectly and maybe in letter of recommendation, ask my teacher to add it.
So again, college authorities are very clear about what they want to focus on and what they would rather not focus on. It will be more helpful if you are able to build more activities in the current time, because even if you write about those achievements, they can just very clearly choose to neglect those, because the criteria is the same for everybody. They want to talk about whatever has happened in the last 4 years. And one unique problem that you and your peers are facing right now is that you did your ninth and 10th grade probably in like during the pandemic, or your sixth or seventh or eighth during the pandemic, right? That's the problem that future applicants are going to face. So that's why a lot of them don't have that continuity in their extracurriculars. They were getting medals before the pandemic, and then they stopped for 2 years, and then they were not able to pick up because they had high school academics to take care of. So it's a very common problem.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, who would like to answer the last question that we have on the presentation? And the person who asked it is not supposed to answer, of course, but others need to answer it for them. So, what is one place where you don't mind waiting? How are you supposed to answer this? Anybody has any suggestions on how to tackle this prompt? Amulya, Karen, would anyone out of you like to try? What is one place where you don't mind waiting? Okay, I'm going to ask Arsalan to answer this for us. Arsalan, what do you think about this question?
Actually, Arman has a funny answer to that. Exam date sheets. That's
All
actually true.
right.
I think every student, since we have been, and for my students, that we wait for the exams. The more we want the results, we'd like to wait for that. So yeah, Arman, I understand. I empathize with that.
But sorry to rain on your parade. Exam date sheet is not a place, so it would not be the appropriate answer for this question.
Definitely
What this
not.
yeah, what this question is asking is the physical place where you wouldn't mind waiting. So one of my students who was a state level basketball player wrote it about the basketball court.
Yeah.
And another one wrote it about being at the mall. So what do you think? Which one is the right answer? Mall or basketball court? Who would like to pitch in, or do I ask Arsalan again?
For the mall one, what did she like specifically write about?
That she was able to play some games in the arcade and check out some clothes for herself.
Because I think Technically, you could really write about any place, but maybe in the sense that he's a basketball player, probably the basketball court would be better because then he could bring his like passion into it. But for mall, maybe like the arcade like was important to her childhood or something. So I feel like either one, depending on how they take it, could be good.
Correct. It depends on what that place means to you. Now the difference here was that the person who wrote basketball court was truly alone in the basketball court, and the person who wrote about the mall was waiting for their friends to arrive because they all decided to hang out together. And while hanging out, that person actually killed time doing a lot of interesting activities. So playing games at the arcade is not exactly waiting, right? You are engaged in some activity. So when we're talking about a place where you don't mind waiting, it has to be a place where you feel still, where you feel calm, and you don't really feel the hurry to get out of there. That's a place where you wouldn't mind waiting. So that's what we need to keep in mind for such a prompt. All right, everybody. So it's been about 2 hours that we've been at this webinar here together. Um, I had a great time speaking about this. I hope all of you can relate to that. All of you had a good time learning about these things, and I was able to answer a few questions and clarify a few things for all of you. If anybody has any follow-up questions regarding this, you can definitely email us and we'll be happy to respond. The floor is still open to questions. If anybody wants to hang around and ask something else, we are going to turn the recording off. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, that'll be great. Otherwise, you can drop off the call if you want to. And
All
Arslan, would
right.
you like to close?
Yeah, thank you, Pooja. I think this was quite detailed, and I hope a lot many questions did get answered here because the way we framed the entire webinar was based on the numerous questions that we had gotten, and the questions that you see on the screen is only the few of them. And the idea was to clarify a lot many basic doubts, and I hope we were able to clear that up. Nonetheless, this is not the the final webinar that we are doing, or the only webinar we are doing. We have planned a series of webinars in the coming months as we move towards your application seasons. So stick around on the social medias and places, and your emails are with us. So whenever we are planning of new webinars, you will be getting invites for those as well. If it interests you, definitely join in. And just few things here. If there are particular things in your applications and essays, like Arman was particularly asking about this thing that can he talk about his medals and achievements before class 9. uh, and as Pooja said, that there are a lot of gaps that have happened because of COVID, because of a lot many students going through a particular classes in that period, and there is a lot of gap in the achievements and the work and things that they have done. One help where we can, I think we can, do for you is, if you want, we could have one-to-one sessions to discuss your profile of what you have, chalk out the gaps, because understand that you're still in your summer seasons right now. You still have good 3 months, 4 months to cover up a lot many gaps that you might have on your profile at this point, so that you're able to present a better application. So if there are particular questions, or particularly if you'd like us to go over your profile with you, take a 30-minute session just to brainstorm what all is there, what more can happen, what more you could do, we'll be happy to help. So in the emails you have our details. You can always reach out with that, and we can set up some session in the coming weeks and as and when you need it, right? Just information about the next webinar that is going to happen. Here, Arman, I think you're applying to Canada, and anyone else who does plan to apply to Canada. So one of the things we saw in the last season is that we had so many students who were applying to Canada. And because of the media and because of the tensions that arose between Canada and India, a lot many parents and students got disheartened, and it left people in a limbo that where exactly do we stand. And to do that, just to be in the clear, people dropped out of Canada out of their college lists. Uh, we have planned a webinar on the next weekend, that is on Friday, where we are trying to talk about the job market and the situations and everything that is going on in Canada at this point. And we have somebody who's currently studying at Canada, who went last year and as is studying at UBC, right? So she will be able to give you a very good picture of what is the current situation, because understand this one particular factor, that what media talks about and what happens on ground, those are two different realities. So to understand what's happening in the on the ground reality, that's a very important factor to consider when you are planning your applications, because you don't want to just leave out of something just because you read it in a blog or an article, or heard it on the news. So you have to be very, very particular about choosing your colleges, and leaving out Canada, it's might not be a very wise idea. And with the changes that are happening in the regulations, we have somebody from Canada who is running an entire company there, helping immigrants and students and international students come in and be prepared, get ready for getting jobs. One of the factors that is going around the world at this point, because of the recessions and coming out of that recession and everything, that there are no jobs. Students are not able to find internships. But there is another layer to that entire conversation. Why exactly? It's not just about the fact that the companies are not hiring, but there are other factors to it as well, which needs to be understood, right? So depending on those particular factors and covering those particular conversations, we have a panel discussion on Friday next, 30th. We will be giving invitations to people. So if you are interested in Canada, or if you are applying to Canada, I think this will be uh, you know, a thoughtful session to have, to be a part of. Yeah. I hope we were able to cover up a lot many things here. And I would just conclude by saying that we are a company who are running uh, the exact thing what we went through with you right now. We help students get into universities, and we are doing counseling sessions. If you are interested in having a more detailed conversations, uh, please reach out, and we should be able to help you out. Either you're in class 11th, 10th, or even lower than that. You can find our details on the screen, and if you are connected through emails, you will have the details there as well. It was a lovely session, guys. I hope it was good for you as well, and we would love to see you in more of our webinars. Thank you for coming.